So I guess we're live. So
Okay.
what's up, everybody? It's Joel, and I have River here with me, and this is our first ever basketball talk podcast. We don't have a name for the podcast yet. We're just kind of going with the flow. And today we're going to talk about the G League, the NBA hiatus, and the last two episodes of the MJ documentary. So, Riv, I know that you know way more about high school basketball than me. So, obviously, all I know so far is that the high school stars, five-star recruits, they want to go to the G League instead of going to college. So what
Well, to
players
be
are there?
to be fair, they want to go to the league and not go to college. So this
Okay.
this is another option where it's like you don't have to go to college. You don't have to waste your time in there. Basically, college that freshman year, you just go in there. You barely go to class. You just practice stuff. So this is a way for them to get paid and still learn skills that adapt to life, like life skills. They have to do mentorship programs, and they play about 10 to 15 games, and they have mentors in the team. So I think this is a great way for eventually for the NBA to move forward with the coming back out of high school route, which I think was a great route back in the day. I just think some kids are really poor, and they can't support their family. They feel like they have a chance to support their family with the NBA. They should go to the NBA. So
And
I think
what's the reason that the NBA first implemented the rule of having players not just coming straight out of high school, they have to go to college?
Well, I think it started with the Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Last year Zion was getting all this. He was bringing all the fans into the stadium, was giving them money, and then students started to feel like they should be getting paid.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what Adam Silver, he's been a really good commissioner so far, and I think that's what started off the whole process of getting players involved. And then they made up this plan, I think with Mahmoud Sharif. I forgot his name. He played for the Nuggets.
Is it the old guy that played in the Big Three?
The point guard,
Yeah. I know. I think his old name was Chris Jackson.
Yeah,
right?
but he went
Chris
like
Jackson. Yeah, I think it's Mahmoud Abdul Raif.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah, he's the president of the G League, and they set up this program. And so far they got Jalen Green, who's allegedly a top 3 pick in the 2021 class.
Yeah.
Isaiah Todd. They just flipped the prospect that was going to UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
They Sean Nix. They flipped him, and he's going to the G League. They got Kyrie Walker, who didn't play last year in high school ball. I don't know why he didn't play, but he didn't play his last year in high school, so they got him going there too. And I think Greg Brown. They tried to get Greg Brown, but he ended up going to Texas. So I think they got 4 guys right now. They're going to try to get more people, but I think it's a great route, honestly. I think the 500 is good, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. The only one that I know is Jalen Green. And that's because the only reason I know him is because they were projecting him to probably be the number 1 pick in a draft. But I'm just going to play devil's advocate here because I follow Devin Alab on Twitter, and obviously he's a basketball trainer and he's well respected. He knows a lot about basketball, and he had an interesting take on it.
What
he said that he's actually worried about players going to the G League. He's not worried about Jalen Green and probably the top prospects, but he's worried about other players foregoing college and going straight into the G League because the G League is a different game and it's tough. And people think that it's just an easy route, but it's actually really good players there.
No, they're definitely. I think he has a point. I think the G League will give us a chance to learn in reality who's really going to be good in the league. And now I think college kind of fools us because college is a little easier than NBA. It's a different game. You can be great in college and be trash in the NBA. But I think in the G League is really going to tell us, like, okay, who can really play in the NBA? Because the G League players aren't scrubs.
Yeah.
But I think getting Jalen Green was definitely the first step in it building up. Because I think Jalen Green is definitely a top 2 pick, top 1 pick, however you look at it, either him or point guard Cade Cunningham. But he's definitely one of the top prospects coming up. And I think that definitely impacted college basketball and the NCAA, and they definitely should look out for the next couple years.
Yeah, and I think that this is going to force the NCAA to change its rules. They might have to start paying players now because we just saw this past year that there wasn't a lot of star power in college basketball, and people weren't really into it. Who knows what the ratings would have been in March Madness, but the reality is that there wasn't no Zion. There wasn't even a John Morant in college basketball.
Wasn't a powerhouse. No
Yeah,
powerhouse.
I just think there's just so many dumb rules. You get into one of the dumb rules where James Wiseman, he can't play for the rest of the season because Javon, one of like the most hyped up players and one of the most popular players, he can't play because he has to wait a year to play.
That's stupid.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of dumb rules, and the NCAA might have to start paying players, because if they don't, then they're just gonna go into the G League.
Another thing they did was they allowed the kids in the 2021 class. That would be it. They are now forbidding they're bypassing their SAT scores, and they're allowing them to make the jump to college right now, or the G League. Like Jonathan Kuminga is another guy who might be going to the G League too. He's the number one recruit in next year's class.
So out of all these players, you've seen their games. Which one outside of Jalen Green, because he's a consensus, I guess, right now, do you think has a future in the G League and can actually hold their own?
I think it's tough because these kids are like, they dominate the high school game. But dominating the high school game doesn't really mean anything. I think Deshaun Nix, the point guard, he has a nice flow to his game. He's a pass-first point guard. He has nice size. He's about 6'2", 185. He has nice size, nice speed. He's got a little flow. He kind of plays like old Rondo in a sense. So I think he'll be – I don't think Kyrie Walker will be that good. I don't know his position, but he's a small forward, a shooting guard, a point guard. He's 6'5". He's long-armed. He's kind of big, but I don't really know what he's going to do. I like Isaiah Todd. His mobility is good. I like Isaiah Todd. I think, Isaiah Todd, Deshaun Nix, if they get Jonathan Kuminga to go in there, I think he's certified. He'll be a top 5 pick if he declares right now. And obviously Jalen Green. Those would be the 4 guys so far.
So talking about declaring to the NBA, let's actually talk about the NBA. And we still don't know when they're going to be back. Obviously, like right now, we both live in – I mean, you live in New York. I live in New Jersey. They're talking about reopening the states on May 15th. But we still don't know if that's going to happen. And we don't know if the NBA is coming back. And I feel like a lot of people desperately want it back. I know that I want it back.
Didn't they just open up the training facilities?
The Lakers, there were reports that the Lakers were trying to open it up, but I don't think they've opened it up yet.
Okay.
But I think that if anything, they'll probably start the playoffs like in July. But how do you think this hiatus will affect the players?
I don't know, because they've been trying to like work out and stuff, but like I don't like it. Like this is like the rhythm is not there. The momentum is gone. The rhythm is gone. They're gonna have to get a flow into the game, and going straight to the playoffs after something like this, even if they're practicing, practice is cool, but you need that game time thing to really get into it. And I think it's just gonna take some time for them to really figure it out. I don't know. I don't like this idea, honestly. And this season's gonna really hurt because they're probably gonna play late into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What you think?
I think that there's going to be a few players that are going to be extremely out of shape. I think that the player that comes to my mind is probably Nikola Jokic.
Joker? I knew he was good.
I think Jokic is going to be so out of shape that it might be good if Houston faces them in the first round, because that'll probably be an easy series for them. Because you know that Russell Westbrook's going to be ready. I have my doubts about James Harden or not. He kind of has a belly there, so I don't know. So I have my doubts about him, but I know that Westbrook will be ready to play. But I think Jokic is the one that comes to my mind, and I think
Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid too. That's another one. But they also he had time to get healthy, just like Simmons.
Simmons, they said he's on his way back to recovery too. So I think that was big for him. I think some team this is helping other teams, but I think Giannis, is going to be ready. Game time, he's going to definitely be ready. I don't know, because a lot of teams just could have, Philly could have been out first round. No Ben Simmons. Could have been out probably in 5 games. Now this makes Boston play, a 7-game series? 7 to 6 game series. So now it makes it tougher. You look at it differently. Denver, who probably would have made it a 6-game series against Houston, now it's looking like, 4 or 5 if Joker is out of shape?
Yeah, thinking about it, it really doesn't seem like any other player besides Joker, any superstar player, will be out of shape. Because let's just go down the list, like Miami. I know Jimmy Butler's going to come ready to play.
He's never out of shape. Yeah.
Jimmy Butler's going to come ready. So is Bam. Then you have Philly. We talked about Embiid and Simmons. Then you have Milwaukee, Middleton, and Giannis.
Yeah.
They'll be ready. And then Toronto, I think they'll be ready too.
Absolutely.
And I think Boston, they'll be ready too. They're a bunch of young players, like they're veterans. They'll be ready. And none of them are out of shape. Like none of them have concerns that they're out of shape. The only person that's had concerns is Joker. We're going to expect Paul George and Kawhi to be ready, LeBron to be ready, AD to be ready. Even Donovan Mitchell, he's not a superstar, but he'll be ready.
Another thing, I think, like, the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert rift, I think is going to show a lot if the playoffs come back. I think that's going to affect them incredibly. And I think Toronto getting fully healthy now is really going to change the tide. Because, they weren't even healthy for most of the season. Fred VanVleet was out when we went down. Marcus Gasol was still out. So now they're going to get all their guys back. And they're probably going to have a full, 10, 11 player rotation. So I think this is helping teams too.
They were actually talking about Rudy Gobert, a trade with him. They said that Washington, the Wizards, were interested in trading for him.
Who would they even get? They want John Wall?
They want a package. No, they want a package where the Jazz will get Rui Hachimura. And the Wizards will get Gobert.
So they're willing to give up a defensive superstar for Rui Hachimura.
I think it's a little more involved, but that's like the biggest name I saw in the proposal. But I mean,
they're a team though, so
for me, it just I think it doesn't make sense for neither because why would Washington want Rudy Gobert?
He's just going to clog the paint. And they already have 5'7" big men now, so it defeats the purpose. And John Wall's going to come back. He doesn't play; he plays in the paint. So
and we're not even sure if John Wall's going to come back and be good because he has a career-ending type of injury, and he has a lot of athleticism.
Did he fall in the bathroom?
Yeah, that's how he tore his Achilles.
And he tore his ACL the year before that?
I think he did get injured, but I know that the icing on the cake was him just tearing his Achilles in the bathtub. He just slipped.
They said they were. That's crazy, man. That's really crazy.
So I don't know. I mean, my pick to win a championship remains the same.
The Rockets.
It's the Houston Rockets. It's James Harden. It's Russell Westbrook. I think they'll be ready to play. I think PJ Tucker, he had some time to, ease down.
And who you got in the East?
Shoes. In the East, I think that obviously Milwaukee's a favorite pick, and they're probably my favorite as well.
Who would be your top three in the East? I know the East is a little. I know who number one is. You got Rockets, Lakers, and Clippers. Either one of those are going to make the chip. I know that.
In the East, I think is Boston, is Toronto, or is Milwaukee.
Okay, that's not a bad list.
I think that Philly, maybe, but I just don't like the supporting cast, and I don't like their bench. And I don't like Josh Richardson there. He's not a knockdown shooter. I don't really like their players, the fit. Al Horford, I don't like the fit with that team. I think they rushed last year. They rushed to try to win a championship.
I think they paid the wrong guy.
Team for the future.
I think they paid the wrong guy, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about Tobias Harris. Yeah.
They paid the wrong guy. Paid him before Jimmy? That screams stupidity.
Yeah, and Tobias had a horrible playoffs last season. He didn't play well at all in the playoffs.
He's inconsistent.
Good games here and there.
He's very inconsistent. Boston is definitely my number one. Mm-hmm. I would say Philly if they're healthy, big if they're healthy. And Milwaukee and Toronto is a toss-up because on one end, we haven't seen Pascal as a number one in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And we've seen Giannis as a number one in the playoffs. And he's has folded, but this year could be different. And the supporting cast, I would take Toronto in a heartbeat because I don't trust Bledsoe in the playoffs. And that's their number three guy. So
I mean, that was the reason that they lost last year, in my opinion, to the Raptors. And I mean, I was watching the game and I was just screaming at the TV because it was in the fourth quarter, 6 minutes left, and Mike Budenholzer still had Eric Bledsoe out there, even though whoever
put George Hill
Bledsoe was helping. I was like, man, put Brogdon in the game, put George Hill. You got to put
George Hill had a really good playoff series that time too.
You got to put shooters around Giannis, and that's another odd move that the Bucks kept Bledsoe over Brogdon. I don't feel like that was a fit.
I mean, defensively, I understood it, but offensively, I didn't get it. Because Brogdon can play defense, and he's better offensively than Bledsoe.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Milwaukee's a tricky team for me because they're a great regular season team, but I don't know. Because last year, realistically, they beat a Detroit team. Okay, that was the worst playoff team we've ever seen ever in life. Then they went and they played a dysfunctional Boston team. And yeah, they beat them in 5. But then they go on to play Toronto. They win 2 and then lose 4 straight. So that team ain't really shown me much yet. That's all. That team just ain't shown me much yet. And the way the season was ending, they was on a downhill spiral too.
Toronto, you're talking about, right?
No, I'm talking about Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, okay.
They just lost 3 of their last 4. They was that rhythm I was talking about. That momentum, they was going down. So who knows if that could have carried on in the playoffs.
And I think it's safe to say that they're a regular season team so far that what we know of.
Yeah.
Because it's not that they don't have the players. It's just that I don't think their play style translates well into the playoffs. Yeah. They're more of a fast break team.
Yeah, and they're horrible.
It's more half court.
Yeah, they're horrible. Giannis is horrible in the half court. He doesn't know what he's doing.
So that's why, like, so far, it's just they're not a playoff team. They're not built for the playoffs, and I'm not sure how they'd match up with Boston.
They don't.
I mean, I'm guessing you're banking on Jason Tatum taking a superstar leap in the playoffs as well, right?
I'm banking on more of the combination of Kemba, Jalen, Tatum, Hayward is just going to outduel Bledsoe, Middleton, Wesley Matthews, and Giannis. That's just like they're just going to outduel them because that's a very dangerous 4. And Tatum and Brown did take that jump this year. In the playoffs, it should be no different. They should have taken that next jump, and they're just going to be too overwhelming for the Bucks. The only thing is the Celtics don't have a true big man to really play down low like the Bucks do. I think that would be the problem. I think Toronto is better suited to play down low. With the Bucks, it's just if Pascal really has taken that next step. Yeah. But I would probably put Boston, Toronto, and Milwaukee. Philly, if healthy, but we don't know Philly's status.
Yeah. So we're skeptical on the Bucks taking that next step. And this past Sunday, we saw the last 2 episodes of the documentary where it shows Michael Jordan finally getting over that next step when he beat the Bad Boy Pistons. So overall, what were your thoughts about the documentary episodes 3 and 4?
I think they were phenomenal. I actually watched them this morning at work. So it was pretty incredible. I like the fact that how they're going every time in the 98 season, a problem happens, they take it back.
Yeah.
It's about how this led up to this, that, and the third. I like it. I was kind of confused on, obviously, Twitter, some of the narratives that were being thrown out there, how the Pistons were old and Magic in them was old. And I was just confused because, no offense, like I don't mean to bring up Braun. I really don't. But that's who they always ended up to. So I'm just like I was watching Shannon Sharp this morning, and he was like, LeBron beat the Big 3. He beat the bad boy Pistons too, and he beat the Big 3 in Boston. And he said somebody else, and I'm like, how you going to say that, but then say MJ didn't do it? But LeBron had Wade and Kyrie in them. It's the same with MJ. He had Pippen, he had his squad, and he beat that squad, and LeBron got his squad, and he beat. So I'm just like confused on how they just like to change the narrative.
Yeah, and I think that's silly because though that Pistons team, they were good, but they weren't the Bad Boy Pistons.
And that team didn't even have Ben Wallace.
Yeah, like they weren't the Bad Boy Pistons. The Bad Boy Pistons were different, and I think that people refuse in this day and age to accept that the game back then was just more physical. You know, I think sometimes the footage, it kind of over-exaggerates it a little bit, you know, because the documentary, it shows that people were flying all over the ground. You know, people didn't have no room to breathe. But when you watch the games, it's like that. When you watch the games, it's not entirely like that. It's more physical.
Yeah.
But it's not like a you know, like a death match out there.
People bring up, they find 1 or 2 clips from back in the day and they throw it like, oh, we thought it was physical. Like, come on, obviously there's the 1 or 2 few plays where it wasn't. But for the majority of it, it was especially when you played the Bad Boys, it was very physical. And to be frank, I didn't think Jordan's teams were that bad until I watched the documentaries. Like, the first time they played the Pistons, they were bad. Like, he had to will them. The second time, they were all right. Scotty was all right, but he wasn't, like, great. And then
Scotty in Game 7, he got that migraine, and he just played horrible.
Yeah, and people were bashing him like MJ can't win. And I'm just like,
yeah,
the same
it doesn't
people.
make sense because it's not only do you have one of your star players who has a migraine, he can't play well, but it's also something to be said about the Pistons going out there and they were trying to hurt Michael Jordan. It's not like they weren't trying; like, they were trying to hurt Michael.
They said it like we're gonna hurt him. Like,
yeah,
that's a testament to how great he is. But overall, I like the thing. Dennis Rodman is a weird guy. Like, he's a really weird guy. But the one thing about him you can say about his game is he's easily one of the most underrated stars we've probably ever seen in this league. Him, I think Isaiah Thomas doesn't get talked about enough. I think Joe Dumars doesn't get talked about enough. I think those three guys. I think Scotty's gonna get his respect now because of the documentary. People are now calling him like the top 10 player ever. I don't know where that's good, but like, yeah, he's great though. But those three guys, Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas.
So I was watching Game 7 of the Pistons and the Bulls.
Which one? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I forgot the year, but I know the Pistons won it.
It was 89.
One of the underrated players on that team was Mark Aguirre. He was really good. He was a really good scorer. He was a really good scorer.
He was a 20-point scorer before he went there.
Yeah, he was a really good scorer. I think that this documentary so far, it's been really good. And I love the Bad Boy Pistons episode, and I love the Dennis Rodman episode. Because I think it just shows, in this day and age, imagine an NBA star dressing like Dennis Rodman. In this day and age, we're supposed to be quote-unquote woke. We're supposed to be hip to that type of stuff and more accepting, but there's still people in this era that aren't accepting. Just imagine in that era how it was received.
Yeah. I feel like he probably was really going through real life problems, and the things he did, honestly, like, imagine you're a coach and your player comes into your office and says, "I need a vacation."
Yeah.
Like, bro, what? What are you talking like? And he really, like, they really gave him the leeway. I think Phil Jackson definitely, like, showed me some things where I'm like, I used to call Phil Jackson overrated. I won't sit here and lie. I was definitely wrong. I didn't realize how hard it really was to coach them. And Phil Jackson definitely changed my mind about him. He's definitely one of the greatest coaches ever. And I feel like the way he handled Dennis Rodman really brought out the best in Dennis Rodman. Like, the fact that Dennis Rodman could turn it on like this was unbelievable to me. Like, sometimes he just didn't feel like playing. Like, that's why he sucked. Like, I thought it was just like he was declining. Well, no, it's just he didn't feel like playing sometimes. Like, that was crazy to me. How you could just turn it on.
I was actually doing some research on Scottie Pippen and watching some old videos and footage. And when he went to Houston and teamed up with Charles Barkley and Hakeem Olajuwon.
Was that 90?
I think 98, 99. It might have been 99 when Pippen left the Bulls.
So the year after, okay.
Yeah.
They all teamed up?
Yeah, they all teamed up. Barkley, Pippen, and Olajuwon. Olajuwon was pretty bad at the time, though. He was bad. He wasn't an all-star. He wasn't a superstar anymore. He was pretty bad. So what I found funny is that Pippen, he talked about the experience on an interview. And in the interview, he talked about how Charles Barkley, he isn't a winner. He doesn't have those intangibles to win. And that's why Michael Jordan said he never would win. And I thought that was funny because I was kind of like, I wanted to dig deeper into it and be like, does Scottie Pippen have a point? But that year, they faced the Lakers in the first round with Shaq and Kobe and
the Rockets.
Guys. Yeah, the Rockets did. Olajuwon played horrible. I believe he averaged 13 points, and he was getting cooked by Shaq. Like, and his field goal percentage was horrible.
Okay.
Charles Barkley averaged 23 points and 12 rebounds with good efficiency over 50%. Okay. And Scottie Pippen averaged 18 points per game. I know it was 17 point something. It might be like, if you round it, it might be 18.
Okay.
He played 41 minutes and shot, I think, 32% from the field. Damn. And I thought it was, he had a lot of nerve to talk about Charles Barkley being not a winner when this guy's over here showing 32% against the Lakers.
I mean, 'cause you could take that two ways. Because on one hand, Scotty does know what it takes to win. Like he does. Michael Jordan, they talked about it in Doc. Michael Jordan engraved that into him. He taught him how to win.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other end, it could have been just Scotty hating, because Scotty has shown in the times a hating mentality towards players. So you could definitely take that two ways. I feel like Charles Barkley, it's not that he wasn't a winner. You play better teams, you lose. That's all it is. Or sometimes it just doesn't happen. It's life. You don't always win. Like,
the thing is though, is that it's just Scottie Pippen has a crutch to fall on with Jordan. And looking back at it now in hindsight, I don't think that if the Bulls would have remained intact, they would have won a championship. Because I think that Scottie Pippen declined that much during that time. In that year span. He was already declining, and then in 99, he declined.
I think he messed up when he didn't get that surgery in the summer, and he was just not working out, just like making the team suffer. And I think he messed up. I do believe, though, they would at least went back to the playoffs easily. Because MJ was still there. Like, he was still going to put up his 27, 28, probably like on less efficiency. But they probably lost to some – it depends. I'm trying to think of a new and upcoming team in the East at the time that was really in the rise.
We talked about in what year, 98?
It would have been 98, 99.
98, 99. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I want two things, because this MJ doc, I know they're going to get into it, but what doesn't get talked about? Two things. One, I'm hoping what they dig into, and they should dig into, is the Knicks teams and the Heat teams in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Those teams were gritty, tough. The Knicks had one superstar, Patrick Ewing. Same like Hakeem, had a bunch of role players, good players, and they were tough, gritty. They were top 5 defense. Just like how people say Detroit was a top 5 defense from 1987 to 1992.
Yeah.
The Knicks were a top 5 defense from 1992 to 1999. They were top 5 defense. I think the Garden was gritty at the time. You could barely beat them at home. And I think those Knicks teams, I hope they bring it up in the doc, but I think those Knicks teams and those Heat teams with Alonzo Mourning and P.J. Brown and those defenses is talked about. And another thing.
I'm going to let you finish your point.
Another thing is I saw some picture this morning of Rip Hamilton talking about how MJ taught him how to shoot mid-range game. And I think that's a testament. I know MJ doesn't get the recognition he deserves about making players better the way LeBron does, but he made Scottie Pippen better, not by his play, but his confidence and his attitude. He turned him into a great – same with Horace Grant. He saw it in the doc. He talked about how he made Horace Grant tougher, and how Rip Hamilton, another example, he taught him how to shoot the mid-range, and he showed him, like, the mid-range you need to, and that led to ultimately Detroit Pistons eventually winning a chip.
Yeah. So what I was about to say is that a team that was on a come-up that people didn't talk about much, but I'm glad that the documentary –
what you're going to say.
I'm glad that the documentary highlighted it was the Cavaliers team.
I knew you was going to say I knew it. I knew you was going to say the
Cavaliers team with Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance.
Larry Nance was on that team. Ron Harper was on that team.
Ron Harper,
too. A good player.
Yeah, and you know what's the thing is that Cleveland might have not won the championship before LeBron arrived there, and I don't want to make this into an MJ LeBron debate, but I think people try to make this narrative that LeBron brought Cleveland to greatness. He might have brought them a championship, but Cleveland had competitive years before LeBron. But I don't think for MJ you can say the same for the Bulls. It just wasn't.
No, you can't.
Like that. Yeah, it just wasn't like that. And I think that that often gets misinterpreted when they bring up the argument in the debate. And I feel like people have to stop debating about this and just appreciate both players and know that they were both in different circumstances and try to make it like it's an apples-to-apples comparison.
Yeah. No, I agree. Them Cleveland teams in the 80s, I knew you was going to bring that up. And they were like, them Cleveland teams in the 80s were really good. Craig Elo, and like they were really – I know they probably were never going to win a championship. But it's always good to have that competitive team in the East. They remind me of those they remind me of them Atlanta Hawks team with Joe Johnson, Jamal Crawford, and Josh Smith. They weren't never going to win a chip. but they were always dangerous to play, and it was always never going to be a cakewalk when you played them. They remind me just like those teams. I think Isaiah Thomas, man, I can't get enough, man. Isaiah Thomas, man. What do you think about the way the Pistons walked off at the end of that playoff series, the sweep?
I mean,
how do you feel?
I think you can't blame them, but I feel two ways about it. Because one way I feel about it is that you can't blame them because they did play a physical series, and after a team kicks your ass, you kind of don't want to tell them congrats and say good luck. You kind of just want to walk off, and that's how they felt at the moment. Another part of me felt that when the Pistons were trying to hurt MJ for the past 2 years, when they were doing all they can, when they were playing dirty, Chicago, when Michael Jordan still walked up to them, shook their hand, and they went off the court. They walked off the court. And the Pistons didn't show that same respect, even though Chicago did show that respect the previous 2 years.
So you think I thought it was always Isaiah Thomas who told him to do it. Mm-hmm. When he said Lambeer did it, that was.
Nah, yeah, he threw Lambeer under the bus.
Yeah, that was. I thought it was Isaiah Thomas. All these years it's been Isaiah Thomas did it, and then Lambeer. They said Lambeer did it, but it was funny to me because I know a lot of people, including myself, didn't notice that Boston did the same thing when Detroit beat them and finally got over the hump.
Yeah, Larry did the same thing. Yeah,
Larry Bird and them walked. So I think that's more of an East thing. Aside from the Bulls, I think that's kind of like an old school thing.
Mm-hmm.
But not to compare the two, but MJ, LeBron, they kind of have the similar careers, having to beat that team over the hump. So MJ and Pippen, right? Pippen gets a little better, he becomes an all-star. They finally beat Detroit. What would you say, because LeBron has faced a lot of teams that's beat him, what would you say would be LeBron's bad boys? Like, who would you say?
LeBron's bad boys. That's tough because in the East, the best team that they faced were probably the Orlando Magic with Dwight Howard. When they went to the championship, it'll probably also,
but they only played once, right?
Yeah, probably be the Boston Celtics, I'd say. Probably the Boston Celtics. But he never got over that hump with the Cavaliers. He got over that hump with the Heat, but not with the Cavs.
So you say...
I'm not sure. Or honestly, LeBron's bad boys might be the Warriors. That's a better one. You beat a 73-9 win team. I don't think that, that's the biggest hump that you could get over.
So I question, because I seen a lot of stuff today, and I know this wasn't one of the topics, but I'm kind of into it, so I'm going to ask you this. Mm-hmm. Guys they was talking about this morning, would LeBron, hypothetically speaking, you drop LeBron in Cleveland, same year Michael Jordan gets drafted, how would their careers stack up? Give me your insight. What do you think
would be the better player?
Not really who would be the better player, but how would you think the East would have ended up by the time both of them retired? Let's say they both retired in 98.
I don't know. That's tough to say, but I might have to just go with LeBron, to be honest. I might just have to go with LeBron. I think he'll have a better career. Just because, you're telling me drop him off in Cleveland, I'm thinking he's going to have Mark Price and Larry Nance and all these guys. So if you drop him with those guys, yeah, he'll win championships with them, definitely.
Yeah, that was good. I don't know what they were like when MJ got drafted. I don't know how whack they was. I'm just hypothetical because they was talking about it this morning. And I know people are saying, now people are starting to bash MJ, the guys he played weren't as talented, but you take the top 5, top 10 most athletic guys in the 90s and 80s, you put them in this era, and they're probably around the same like Dominique Wilkins is probably around the same athleticism as Paul George, probably more athletic than Melo, right? They're right there. Athleticism isn't everything. I think skill-wise, the 80s and 90s were there. The superstars, not the regular guys. I think talent top to bottom is better now, but I think the superstars had it. Magic had it, Isaiah had it, Bird had it. He was just unathletic. You had Hakeem had it.
I just think that Twitter is filled with jokes and memes and biases. So it's you can't really get an honest opinion from Twitter but people that know the game just know the game. So I think you got to ask people that know the game. You got to listen to people that know the game. So when you hear Hall of Fame players speak on these other great players like Kevin Durant speaking on Jordan and saying he'll be the best in this era, I mean, you kind of have to listen. This is one of the best basketball players that has ever played the game saying this about Jordan and saying this about other players. So I think you have to take their word on it because, they know the game. They dedicated their whole life to perfecting their craft and to studying the game.
All right, so before we get out of here, I want to play a little game with you real quick. I'm gonna name you 10 players, right?
All right.
We're gonna hypothetically you throw them in this era. I want you to give me superstar or all-star or just great player, good player. Okay.
All right.
Michael Jordan,
superstar.
Okay. Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah. That's tough. I'll go with superstar still though.
Superstar. Okay. Magic Johnson.
That's tough because I feel like he reminds me of Ben Simmons, to be honest.
And the knock on Magic is you've never seen him not play with a great player.
Yeah, I mean, damn, that's a tough one. I mean, I'll just say superstar because that's Magic Johnson.
Larry Bird.
Superstar.
Charles Barkley.
Damn.
What is he, 6'5", 6'5" power forward?
6'5", damn. He's like a Chuck Hayes that can play offense.
Yeah.
Damn. Charles Barkley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn, man. I think he'd be a star. I don't know about superstar.
All-star? Okay. What's that? 5. David Robinson, the Admiral.
Star.
Okay. Clyde Drexler.
Star.
Okay. Let me think another one. I'm trying to think of another one. Gary Payton.
Star.
John Stockton.
I think he'll be like an all-star, maybe not make it. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Carmelo.
Superstar.
You think Carmelo? I think Carmelo would be like just a stronger Zebo, like just a guy inside scorer. Let me think. I feel like am I missing somebody? Joe Dumars.
I mean, just a solid player.
Yeah. Am I missing somebody? I feel like I'm missing somebody. Did I name everybody? Yeah, I think I named everybody. No, let me go back even further. Okay. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Superstar.
Elgin Baylor.
I don't know. I can't think about that far back, so I don't know.
Oscar Robertson.
I say a superstar too.
And then finally, James Worthy. So underrated.
I think he'll be an all-star. I don't know about superstar.
Oh, I forgot these two. Scottie Pippen.
He'll be a solid player.
Solid player. You think so?
Yeah, I mean, he might be an all-star, but I don't know. It depends. If he's in the West, no way is he an all-star. If he's in the West, maybe in the East, he'll be an all-star.
Kind of gives me like Jimmy Butler vibes, like the way they play. They kind of play similar to me. I don't know why though. Dennis Rodman.
I think he'll just be a solid role player. That's what he'll be.
That's my list. I'm done. Those are the guys I could think of.
Yeah, so this is our first podcast. What we're going to do here is we're just going to talk basketball. We're going to have a conversation. It's different from our Pick a Side podcast where we're always debating and arguing with each other. This is more of a relaxing tone. And on this podcast, it's just going to be strictly basketball talk. We're probably trying to do a couple episodes a week, maybe more if we can, if, the schedule's free up. We don't have a name for this podcast. We don't have a logo. We just thought of it out of nowhere. So we'll probably get to it soon. And thank you guys for watching and see you next time. And it's nice talking to you, Riv.
All right, my boy. I'm going to catch you.